I'm Marina from St. Maurice and St. Verena in Toronto, Canada. Do you have questions? Any topic? Send them in to CYC for our new program called En Route. Come en route with us.
The girl not look for a cute guy because the devil, if he appears, he will be the most cute guy. We are the light of the world. As a Christian, you have the Holy Spirit. To show his Christianity is to be a real Christian.
CYC, Christian Youth Channel.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Ask on CYC. So we've seen a few episodes in the past about same-sex marriage. However, now we're going to focus on something different, but it relates back to it. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the children. So have we thought of the children in this whole circumstance, in this whole issue? Have we thought of the consequences that's going to happen to our children, our future children, our grandkids? Have we stopped to think about them? Right now we're thinking about us, we're thinking about our churches, we're thinking about protecting our rights. But have we thought about protecting the rights of our children? And that's what we're going to talk about in tonight's episode. So let's think about the children. Let's talk about safe schools. Let's also talk about other issues such as what would happen when surrogacy comes into play, or adoption comes into play, or when it becomes encouraged, that same-sex becomes encouraged to the point where they'll adopt children, that procreation will stop to exist because it becomes normal. And that's what we're going to talk about in tonight's episode. So I'm giving you the opportunity to tune in, ask questions, whether you send me a text or give us a call and speak to our guests on tonight's show. And now let me introduce you to tonight's guest. We have with us Samuel and Mervat Magar. Welcome to Ask. Pleasure having you on Ask. Thank you. So just a reminder to our audience, the phone number is 0416 551 292. The reason why we give you a live show is to give you the opportunity to ask questions, get involved and have a say. So please send us a text or give us a call and speak to tonight's guest. So let's get into the show. So let's get to know you guys better so my audience can be more familiar and comfortable. So what do you do for work, Samuel?
I'm an engineer by trade. I work for a number of companies. I've had my consulting company in the past, but yeah, basically an engineer, a simple engineer.
Okay. How about yourself, Mervat?
My main work is I'm a mum. I think that's my biggest achievement in life. But I'm also a teacher, a mathematics teacher, as well as I do part-time. I run my own business as a mortgage broker.
Okay. So how many children are you guys trying to protect?
All of them.
Okay, so we have 2 biological children.
Okay.
23 and 18 years old, and we have 4 foster children.
Okay.
10, 8, 6, and 4 years old.
Big family.
Big family,
Yeah.
yes.
So a lot to protect and to look
Correct.
about. Yeah.
Keeps her busy.
Mm. Okay, so why are we protecting and what's the issue?
Well, I think I'd like to start with that one because this whole same-sex marriage ordeal has been it's been very stressful on the whole family, as you may know, especially being a teacher. I think it's been particularly stressful. We are worried because we feel like there will be a lot of consequences on our children. It is obviously the role effect of it will definitely affect us in a lot of ways, from our faith to our education, to our everyday life and our friends, being able to say and you know what we feel and what we believe in. So it's a big ordeal for us, and this is why we started kind of researching into it, knowing more about it, and at the same time, the more we found out about it, the more scared we are, and more worried about our children.
Okay, so we're here to talk about safe schools. So what link does safe schools have with the same-sex marriage?
I think also to add into that, as you introduced us, engineer and a teacher, we're not psychologists, we're not doctors, we're not holding any medical qualification, but it's just the passion of being parents, and we want to go into this for everybody, that we can educate them on what we're doing.
Sure.
A lot of people are not aware of it. A lot of people that you talk to with all this debate about same-sex marriage, they say, oh, that's same-sex marriage, it's got nothing to do, it's love is love, nothing to do with our children. Safe school is a different issue altogether. Do not confuse the two together. But then we feel, and we have found, that it's actually a complete package. It comes through as a package. Same-sex marriage comes through first, and then safe school comes through after it. People that are actually lobbying for same-sex marriage in Australia go out and openly say it's same-sex marriage is what we want, but we also want equality. We also want safe schools to be in there. And I think we've got a little brochure, a little photo that shows what we're talking about. I'm hoping that this goes up on the screen.
You can put it
Right over there.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So you can see down the bottom left-hand side, it talks about safe school is part of the package. It's not just same-sex.
So this was the banner that, the first banner that went in the Rainbow March, as they
Okay.
call it. And at the top of it, you'll see safe schools and marriage equality side by side. It has a lot of other things at the bottom, like age of consent, equal age consent, which obviously the biggest issue here is that they believe that children are sexual beings from a very young age.
Whatever age they are.
Yeah, so that has a lot of implications on families, I guess.
And I think the other thing that we keep thinking about is that being adults and living a life, and I'm sure you do, if you've touched fire, or if you know that somebody's touched fire, it's hot, they warn you about it, you know not to touch the fire. So we pick a lot of our experiences, a lot of our research comes from overseas. So people that have actually implemented same-sex marriage already, what is the next step after that happens? And you see people in, like governments in Canada, governments in the US, governments in the UK, wherever same-sex marriage was introduced, not long after safe school or an equivalent of safe school comes along. And that's what worries us, is that it will be part of the package. People keep saying, no, it's not, but we believe it is, and research shows us that it is, and hence that's why we're concerned.
Okay.
In Canada, for example, same-sex marriage was passed in 2005, and in 2012, 7 years later, they've introduced the Accepting Schools Act. It became law, which is the equivalent of our safe schools. So safe schools, the equivalence of safe schools in Canada is now law. It's not something you can avoid. And you can see how you know how big that is. Unfortunately, safe schools is already in Australia, even before same-sex marriage becomes law. And I think that's attributed to the fact that same-sex couples already have all the laws backing them up. They already, have every law under the sun that gives them, gives them the same right as any other heterosexual couple. And hence, we've already had a taste of safe schools. So I don't know. maybe we should go through a little bit of a history of safe schools
Sure.
to start off.
So let's talk what is safe schools and maybe
Yeah.
give the audience a better understanding what it is. Because when I first heard safe schools, I thought it was something good. Because
Great.
It
Sounds good.
It sounds safe. Yeah. But until we found out what it is. So let's talk about what it is here.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're best in history.
Maybe. So Safe Schools was brought on by university, La Trobe University in Victoria, 2010. It was actually received funding by the state government at the time to do some research into the sexuality and health section of the university. And from there, it was developed as a way to protect children of same-sex couples. Because the understanding is that they were being bullied at school, or protecting children that are gay or lesbian and being bullied at school. So therefore, how do you overcome that, or how do you support that? So it came around as being an anti-bullying program. But unfortunately, it evolved from there. The people that developed it are very biased, and it went from there to 2013. It was actually implemented, brought in by federal government in 2013. Initially, when I heard that, I thought, it was brought in by the later Prime Minister, but it actually came on around June 2013 during the Gillard era, before she left office, and it was rushed through before Liberal came along. So the Liberal came along and they found it, and they've kept going with it. From there on, a lot of parents started kicking up a big stink about it, saying, hang on, we're not happy with this. Our kids are coming home with information. Our kids are coming home saying things. Our kids are coming home confused. What's going on? And I think the good thing is that people lobbied, and that's something that we need to learn how to do, lobby our people to speak out what we want. And lobbying went through. Federal government did an investigation into it. 2016, the federal government decided they're going to pull the funds out, so it's no longer funded.
It was that extreme.
Yeah, it was no longer funded by the federal government in 2016, but because money is in there in the system, it'll stay until July 2017, and that's basically they got no more money. The unfortunate thing, or fortunate and unfortunate, the fortunate thing is that a lot of state governments recognised what the federal government has done, and they also stopped supporting it. New South Wales, ACT, Tasmania, South Australia, they all pulled the funding. The only 2 states or 3 states that I'm aware of, or regions that I'm aware of, is the Northern Territory, Victoria and Western Australia that are still going ahead with it.
It's state funded at the moment.
It's state funded at the moment,
Yeah.
and that's basically a bit of the history behind it, how it came about. And I guess when we say safe school and we keep talking about the gays and the lesbians and the transsexuals and so forth, I have to clarify that we're not here to attack those individuals. We, as the Bible teaches us, love everybody, and we want those people, whoever you are, whatever you are, if you do need somebody to talk to, please approach somebody, whether it's a parish priest, whether it's a friend. Do not be scared. Do not feel like you're isolated. It's important that you reach out. Same as if I'm in trouble, I go out and reach out. So please do that. And this is in no way, as they call us, hate speech or bigotry and so forth. So let's put that down from the beginning so that everybody's aware of that.
Sure. Okay.
One of the main lobbyists against same-sex marriage, because he is so concerned about safe schools being implemented back into our schools. His name is Dr. David Van Ghent. He's the author of Stealing from a Child, The Injustice of Marriage Equality. So this is a great, great book. We swear by it.
Can I just interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
So I know I'm going to throw this at you, Mina, but we're going to go and say this book should be in every household.
Every
and
home.
For those viewers that are interested, we're willing. I have no association with this doctor. I've just read this book, and it is a brilliant book to read. And so we're willing to actually say, if you dial in, or if you call in, or if you SMS and you'd like to get a copy of this, we will fund a copy of that to get to you.
Sure.
Really need to understand everything that's going on as a parent, definitely.
We're happy to fund the first 50 books. Okay? If you're one of the first 50 callers, we're happy to make that happen.
That sounds like a generous offer.
Okay.
So I'm just going to quote straight from him. Dr. David Van Gan says, same-sex marriage and safe schools is a package deal. It is a revolution. If you want your revolution to succeed, you must do two things. The first one is control the education of children. And the second is you must silence dissidents. And as we know, with every revolution, it had to go through the youth. It was the youth who are able to have all this energy and uprise and fight against things. And so he's got a very valid point there, I believe. And this is why Safe Schools is a very, very important part of the same-sex revolution that is being pushed, or agenda that is being pushed on us. Furthermore, to prove that they are linked, so many journalists have spoken about this. So many journalists have said it outright, including the Greens Party. But this journalist from Brisbane Times, her name is Maeve Marsden. She's a transgender, I believe. She says, yes, marriage is not a final frontier. Yes, we want safe schools. Yes, gay conversion therapy is a child abuse. Yes, we want transgender kids' agency to be respected and supported, regardless of what their parents want. Yes, this is straight from an article that she wrote. And while we think in New South Wales and parents are going, oh, I'm going to sit back now because Safe Schools has been pulled out, while we're getting comfortable, what is actually happening is we have not uprooted Safe Schools program from our schools. What we have done is pruned it. We've just kind of calmed it down until such time when same-sex marriage becomes law, and then it will enshrine, literally, in every single classroom in your school. It will be unavoidable. It will be law.
Sure.
I can also put in there, I know we keep talking about LGBTIQ+. I'm not sure how many of our audience actually aware of what those letters represent and so forth. So maybe you want to just clarify what those letters...
I guess quickly, gays, lesbians, bisexuals, transgender, intersex, and queer. And now because they keep adding the letters, they're just adding a plus at the end because it just keeps going on and on. Intersex is probably the only one that is biologically, I guess, provable because they have both, both male and female parts, I guess. They're born that way, and it is classed as a deformity, nothing else. But however, the actual lobby group, LGBTIQ, support and represent tens and tens of genders, other genders that are coming up. And I don't know all of them. I just know male and female, but there are a lot more than that. There's probably, what we found is probably about 50 plus on the internet. Okay.
I want to discuss more about what's being said in these schools, because I know growing up as a child with a Coptic family, I know when a kissing or a sex scene came on TV, my parents would flick the channel over to avoid watching the scene. But it seems like even worse is being implemented. So let's talk more about what's actually being implemented in these safe schools.
Okay. Being a teacher, I guess I can talk on that. All right, so what do they teach? Okay. Now, as a teacher, and I'm sure there are a lot of teachers or student teachers out there, you would know that the syllabus, for example, I teach mathematics, the maths syllabus says you've got to learn these things. The supporting materials, which are your textbooks and everything else, is not listed in the syllabus. And this is where we become entangled with the Safe Schools program. So at the forefront, the Safe Schools program on the syllabus looks quite all right, looks like an anti-bullying program. But then the supporting material, which is mainly the -18, and there's another website called Scarlet Teen, and what's the other one? All of us, supporting material. That's all part of the supporting materials for safe schools. And this is where it becomes dangerous. And I urge every parent to go looking into some of the material in these websites. So they push gender theory, which is basically your gender is how you feel. It's not what body parts, what sexual parts you have biologically. It's how you feel. They push that gender is fluid and it changes over time. So, this year I might feel like I'm a boy because that's how I feel. Next year I might feel like I'm a girl, and it changes, and that's quite okay. No mention of any help psychologically to these kids. It's purely about making them feel like it's okay. That's okay. It's okay to feel that way.
Sorry to cut you off. Can I
Sure.
before I ask you to be more comfortable in
Yes, sure.
just a disclaimer to our audience members, if any children are watching this segment, please stop them from watching any further, because what is going to be discussed now could be of offence to the young children. Please stop them. This is an adults only segment. Thank you. So please be more comfortable and warn us or scare us on what's being taught in these schools.
So pretty much it goes from the basic gender fluidity into providing explicit support to kids who are transitioning through high school, or early high school, I should say, late primary school, early high school. So what we're talking about here is
Can I just,
kids.
when we say transitioning from one gender to what
To
they
another.
think is another gender. So today I'm a boy, and I know you said next year I'm a girl, but it could be today I'm a boy, tomorrow I feel like I'm a girl. And so therefore there's a period that you transition from being a boy to being a girl. That's what we mean by
So if a boy,
transitioning.
for example, feels like I'm a girl, I feel like I'm trapped in this boy body, they actually support them in transitioning to a girl. Now, here's the process of doing that.
Are we talking about medically speaking?
We're talking medically
Combination.
speaking.
Okay.
We're talking medically speaking,
And the
this
school
is the
is
scary
helping
part.
with this.
The school helps out, okay? Especially, and this is all information that we got from Dr. John Whitehall, who is
Pediatrician. He's
a professor at University of Sydney.
University of Western Sydney. He's been a pediatrician for the last 51 years. He's seen over 200,000 patients as a pediatrician, a lot of kids. And yeah, we went to his presentations and researched, and everybody can.
The medical side of it. Please Google him or YouTube him. He's got some amazing explanations. Obviously, I can't be that, but he talks about, especially in Victoria at the moment, specifically Victoria, the state of Victoria, to help these kids transition. This transitioning medically starts from around the age of 9 or 10 years old. And this is when they start administering puberty blockers to them. In a lot of the cases without parental consent.
Oh, wow.
Without parental, especially if they know that the child comes from a conservative family or a family that is not going to approve.
But shouldn't a legal guardian or a parent sign off on any form of medication that a child takes?
No, they get to a stage where they actually deem them medically, what is
Sexually mature enough to make that decision upon themselves. Now, I don't know how a 9-year-old has got the right to make that decision for themselves when you're not allowed to drink, when you're not allowed to smoke until the age of 15 or 18, but you're allowed to change or go into the process from as young as 9,
say
11,
I'm ready for
13.
this, and this is a big thing. So puberty blockers, what that actually does is it literally blocks the system where you're actually gaining maturity. So puberty blockers stop you from gaining the maturity to make that decision to start off with. And the reason they administer puberty blockers first is because they say we don't want the child to go into puberty of the sex that they belong to, or of their sex.
They're born with, yeah.
Because that's not what they want. So we're going to stop that process in order for them to make more informed decision in a few years' time. But in a few years' time, these puberty blockers have actually made them more stupid. And I'm not joking about that. It actually stops their maturity level to make these kind of decisions. And then 3 years later, at the age of 12 or 13, when the child says, yes, I'm ready to cross over to the other sex, they start administering cross-hormonal medication, again, without parental permission. Again, that's a massive thing in its own, in its own right. And then by the age of 16 or 17, they start going into surgery.
There's actually a case, I think it came on 60 Minutes not long ago, where a child that was 13 and went through the surgery and changed sex from one to the other. And then a couple of years later decided, no, hang on, I don't want to be that anymore, and came back. The part about the puberty blockers and so forth, it's something that you have to take on for the rest of your life. You don't stop. So it's medication you have to keep taking. So imagine if somebody, like that example, the child has gone over, 3 years down the road he decides he doesn't want to take the puberty blockers, his brain comes back, rewires to where it was originally. Now psychologically he's in a different body to what his body thinks or what his brain thinks he is. So you can imagine the conflict that happens there, a lot worse than what they think it is now. There is, I think, a small video that we've got.
They become sterile.
Yes.
That process actually makes them sterile. So in one way, it's child abuse. It's nothing but child abuse. But, how are we allowed to do this to children? I don't know.
What's scary about all this is this could be happening to our children and we're not
don't
aware of it.
That's right. So we know from the research that we've done is that it's happening in Victoria. And in Victoria, same as we have, for example, school chaplains. In Victoria, they've allocated a doctor per school, and that was part of the same
Where needed,
I'm
Safe
forgetting now.
Schools.
Safe Schools program, where they're actually there to support the students, and they're the doctors that actually assess the student and say, yes, that student is ready, so we will give them puberty blockers. And they ask the student, look, do you think you'll get support at home with this? And if the student says, no, my mum is this or my dad is that, then they say, look, you don't have to tell your mum or dad, you can keep going with what you're going. And I think many people have seen YouTube videos of mothers and parents that actually are standing up against this and speaking out, and which is great that they are speaking out. And I think if it's not for those families speaking out, this system would not have been removed from New South Wales and other states as I spoke to.
Sorry, I just got a question that came in from an audience member. They're asking, will safe schools affect the Coptic schools by any form?
Look, I don't doubt for a minute that it will.
If it becomes law.
It becomes law. We are not, by law, we have to teach the curriculum. We do not have a choice. I think what we will have a choice about is how deep we get into it. If we can control that. But it will be something like every other curriculum that we have to go through. We're not going to be exempt, that's for sure. Maybe not straight away. But definitely down the track, I would say yes. It's a revolution. If it comes through, it's going to come through. Whether it's in 3 years' time or 5 years' time, it's going to come through. It's inevitable, unfortunately, yeah.
I can just refer to one show that I've seen with Kevin Andrews, who's the Premier of Victoria, and because the funding was pulled federally, so he said, I'm going to support it. The Labor government is going to support it in Victoria, and we're going to push it all the way through. And the aim is by 2018, every public school will be safe school ready, so they can support those people. And then the question was asked from one of the audience in Q&A, is that going to be applied across all private sectors, Catholic schools and so forth? And he said his expectation is every single school, doesn't matter if it's private, Christian, any religious school, have to fulfill that law. And so to answer your question, I suppose I don't have a crystal ball, but just seeing what is happening and what is being said, I'd be saying most likely it will be impacting the Coptic schools as well. There is an example overseas in the UK, a Jewish girls' school, and this Jewish girls' school used to get A+ every year for their rating because they've been such a good school. Since the UK implemented same-sex marriage, safe school equivalent was happening in the UK, and because that Jewish school chose to keep their faith and not teach transgender and so forth, they're now rated at a C- or whatever it is. They got to the extent where the Jewish school said, we're going to have to shut down. We cannot teach our student this, and we're not willing to, so we're looking at options of shutting down. So that's an example. I mean, as I said before, we have to learn from other people's mistakes, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're researching. That's what we're finding. So,
okay.
Hopefully that answers the question.
Sure.
And just to add to that, with England, same-sex marriage was only introduced 3 years ago, mind you. And when it was first introduced, they did have all the faith protection laws in place and all of that. And just the last couple of months, one of the main parliamentarians was saying we're never going to have complete equality unless churches are forced to marry, same-sex couples. So if that's the mentality, never have complete equality, then it will obviously be rolled out on all of us, no exception.
Okay.
But just to take you back to some of the other things that they teach at safe schools, and so I think the parents really need to be aware of what goes on in their child's school, be aware of, look out for different, clues that the kids come home with. Things like uniform is no longer going to be across sexes. A boy can come wearing a girl's uniform and vice versa if they're at a co-ed school. Toilets, they're going to be unisex toilets. Change rooms, a transgender boy might feel more comfortable using a girl's change room, and he'll be allowed to. Even camps. Okay, so while we're trying to, we might look at it from the fact that we're protecting this child and we're making them feel welcome. What about the welfare of the rest of the students? What if there are 3 or 4 students who don't feel comfortable with having what used to be known as a boy in their grade using their toilets with them, or being in the same camp room as them? So it's kind of a double sword, if I can call it that, because while we're trying to protect some kids, it's actually impeding on the welfare of others.
Can I also go to the co-ed school part of it? So we assume that it's co-ed schools, but also the research that we do it shows you that there is schools like an all-boys school. But if one of those students decides that now I would like to be a transgender or a female, well, the school has to have the facilities for that person to still study in the male school, but have facilities as in a female toilet for them, and dress and go into the male-only school and so forth. That is something that Safe School then puts down on the schools, that you must fulfil that. And it's disturbing for me, and you can see we're both passionate, but it's just disturbing for us listening and hearing that sort of thing.
Okay. Sorry, just a reminder to our audience members, please, this is your opportunity to ask questions, get involved. Send us a text or give us a call and speak on tonight's live show. The phone number is 0416 551 292. Thank you.
I just wanted to also share with the audience some of the posters that are safe schools material that are being put around the schools that are safe schools, that are members of Safe Schools program. And in one way, I think they are kind of reversing. If they're calling it bullying, they're kind of reversing the bullying onto straight kids. Posters like this are actually making straight kids feel inferior now, which is the majority of kids. Gross. Being straight is totally just a phase. It's just really, really scary that, the norm is now made to feel like you're inferior. And I guess they're playing with their mind that way. I don't mind if you're straight, just don't flaunt it in public. And they actually teach kids that you don't know if you're gay or not unless you've tried it.
Oh, wow.
These are the kind of things. How do you know you're gay or not? How do you know if you like it or not unless you try it? And this is discussed clearly. It's like, I'm not gay. Kids will say, I'm not gay. But, say, well, you don't know that. This is something that we've found out recently. Cisgender is one of the genders, apparently, and that's just the normal people. They're called cisgender. The ones who identify with the same sex they were born are called cisgender. Now we have a gender. Now we're a gender. It's kind of getting out of control, if you can see what I mean. And to make matters worse, things like, where's my flyer? This -18 website one of the main lessons they actually teach kids is it's called cover your tracks. Now, who would you want to cover your tracks from? It says nothing worse than having someone see that your last Google search was for gay teens Melbourne. So they're actually encouraging kids to go search for things, but then cover their tracks by removing history. This is one of the lessons, removing history from their web browsers, so that their parents can't find out what they've been searching.
Yeah.
It's so they know this is wrong. How do you cover your tracks?
So I want to talk about the actual education and focus on sexuality. How much of it is being pushed, the content of sexuality in primary schools, for example?
Okay. They are taught at early secondary with safe schools what it means to be gay. Like what does that entail? Just like we used to, when we were doing sex ed, we were told there is a man with a penis, a girl with a vagina, and not much explicit information is given, but they end up coming together, and then it's then producing a child. They go through the same thing and how gay men perform sexual acts in order to explain to them a little bit more. And it might encouraging them. I'm sorry to say this, but encouraging them through masturbation, encouraging them with sex toys, and these are some of the -18 material. When are you ready to do it? Choosing when to have sex, if at all, is totally up to you and completely valid.
Some of the
We used to say, abstain from sex. That's the best way to do it. For safety as well. Don't fall pregnant, all of these things. So you got an STI, now what?
STI being the sexual transmitted diseases. So if you got herpes now, so what?
It was just a part of life, a sexually active individual. So it's okay, it's all right. You will come across STIs, not a problem. It's just part of being active. Where are my bisexuals at? Encouraging bisexuality. It doesn't matter if someone sleeps with more girls, guys, or people who identify as neither. Doesn't matter. As you can see what I mean, like the encouraging of exploring sexual acts is scary.
Can I just jump in?
And how do I talk about my interest in a threesome with my boyfriend?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's perverted.
It is perverted. And if I can jump, you're saying how is it implemented in education? So one of the lessons that you read about is that a teacher would bring up students and say, okay, well, you're 11 years old. Let's imagine you're a 16-year-old gay, gay boy who wants to have sex with another person that you like. Excuse me.
Another boy.
So you might be not a gay person, not a lesbian person, but you're being encouraged from the age of 11 to think about what it would be like in the age of 16. And so whereabouts are we taking our children at that young age to make them think about these things? It's a real worry. And
role playing, yeah.
Yeah, role playing, and in education also in trying to normalize the situation, trying to make people not be so bullied is the word that they use. So then they say, okay, well, I'm going to have all the students line up, and this is one of the things that they train the teachers on how to do. Okay, if you believe that gays and lesbians are okay, stand on this side. So you can imagine if you had 15 kids at the age of 10, 9, 11, 12, 12 might go over this way and the rest 3 will be standing over this side. Well, that to me is isolating them and making them feel, oh, hang on, I should be supporting. So then they'll jump over because they're feeling isolated. So that sort of little things that subliminal, working on our kids, it's the part that worries us, and that's part of the education that they're actually training them, some of the support material they give the teachers.
There are also a number of books that are used in schools from preschool age, that are pushing the transgender issue.
Oh, wow.
So there is one of the most famous ones that they commonly use. And by the way, one of the Coptic school librarian actually got a hold of the list of books, transgender books or same-sex marriage books, went through her library and actually found a few in the Coptic library, Coptic school library. So they just seem to find their way in every single school. But one of them is called Gender Fairy. And I urge you, if you have a young, for a baby, a toddler, whatever you want to call them, 4-year-old, I urge you to go and read that book. There's actually, don't buy it, please don't buy it, but just go through YouTube, Gender Fairy by Joy Hurst, I think it is. And it talks about that, you know, a boy doesn't feel like he wants to be a boy, he wants girls' toys, you know, all of these things, and that's okay. It's okay to feel that way. But then what actually happens in the schools is they start putting in kids' idea in their head from that young age that you could be transgender. You could be trapped in this body. And this is where it starts. I've just printed one poster, and I think the boys up the top upstairs have got it so that they can post it. But this is just one small selection of LGBTQ children's books, which push the issue of 2 mummies, 2 daddies in the house, and it makes it okay, and, you know, transgender, you know, like there's just a variety of them. Yeah, so, you know, it's within the education part, not just your PDHP, safe sex, you know.
Yeah. I just got a question that came in from an audience member. They're asking, how do we get access to which Victorian schools currently participate in this?
It is online, and it is in the, I'll have to find the actual link. I'm sorry, I don't know it off by heart. I'll find the actual link to it, and if I can send it to the channel, and then you guys can pass it on to, or they can just email us.
Either way.
I guess if you email australiavoteno@gmail.com, that's australiavoteno@gmail.com, with that question, I'll find the actual link with the list of all the schools and send it and reply back with it.
I suppose also to add to that point, that one stage those lists of schools were actually hidden. They were not released. And parents that were concerned were looking to see if their school was actually one of them or not. They couldn't find those lists and their names on, and they'd have to ring the school individually and say, are you participating in safe school programs?
Yeah, we will go through what questions parents need to ask when they approach the school as well, towards the end.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just before we move on, just a question. If the Same-Sex Marriage Act does not go through, what happens to Victoria? Are they going to still practice safe schools?
According to Kevin Andrews, yes, he will by 2018. I don't know when the election in Victoria is and whether he will go through and take government again or not. But his promise was that, yes, I will be going through with it. So as we saw with the federal government, even when they stopped the program back in 2016, it's continued because the money is in the system, continued until 2017. And as Mervat said, it's just been pruned but not actually uprooted. So probably say it'll take, as you break glass, it takes a long time to rebuild that glass. So it'll take a couple of years before it goes away. And it's going to be up to the Victorian audience to get in there and lobby your members of parliament and make them aware that you're not happy with it. And you'll be called all kinds of names, bigots, transphobe, all those things. But please, this is your kids you got to worry about. And I put the simple example is that, you know, if you have a sister or if you have a young brother,
it's
or
not just the parents that
it's
we're
not just the
addressing here.
parents. Please look after your nieces, your nephews, your brothers, your sisters,
And
because
they might feel more these kids might feel more comfortable in talking, you know, knowing our culture, might not be so comfortable talking to mum and dad about something that made you feel uncomfortable. It might be talking to brother or sister, or, you know, a young aunt, or, you know, a cousin or something like that. So we all need to watch out for our kids.
So let's talk about what we can do about it now.
Yeah,
So how can we be proactive or even reactive since it's already come into play as parents, as friends, as individuals, as a community?
Yeah. Look, this is dangerous on many levels, medically as well as socially and psychologically. So I think as parents, the first port of call is to find out whether your child's school is on that list, and there are a lot that were in New South Wales as well. So you do need to make sure that even some Catholic schools, believe it, were in the list. We do need to make sure that if they are on the list, you then approach the school and ask them for specific things. So find out if they're listed first, then approach the school and ask them if they use the All of Us resource. All of Us resource. Okay, so these are the key, resource materials that they use. Check if they've got the booklets that are OMG, I'm queer, OMG, my friend's queer, OMG, I'm trans, and then gender questioning. All these are like booklets that are available in the library, in your kids, in the children's library. See if they're available for them. And then be very wary of any LGBTIQ events that are organised. This will most likely be in high school. The events will most likely be in high school than in primary school. Primary school, they'll tackle them with your little books and picture books and stuff like that. Whereas the real culture is embedded in high school. And so LGBTIQ events might be Wear a Purple Shirt Day. And we know a lot of workplaces that are actually doing that and coercing it on their workers. But it's happening at schools, and it's happened at my school, unfortunately. And my son goes to that school, so I was waiting to see. He was old enough though. I was waiting to see how he'd react to it. I didn't want to say anything, but then he said, "I'm just going to be away for that day, or I'm going to turn up in a bright yellow shirt." Like, okay, good. I'm proud of you. But yeah, things like that, because they don't just want acceptance; they want us to celebrate this, perversion. I have to call it that. It is nothing but that. They want us to celebrate it, and that's why they would do these events and raise money and things like that. The most important part is to speak openly about this topic with your children. From the ages of about 11, 12, we already speak to our 10-year-old about it, and we're very open. Because if it does come up at school, then it's most likely that he'll come back and tell us, because it's been an open topic at home.
Build that relationship,
Yeah.
build that bridge, and get them
If they're
be
not
comfortable
scared of talking
about
to you about it, you're most likely to know about it early.
I suppose you can also, some of the things you do approach the school, if they are that, approach the school and tell them that you're not happy with that, and what can you do. And when we say safe school, usually sex education happened in PDHPE or something like that, but safe schools actually applied across all subjects, so from maths all the way to everything else. So it's not something like religion where you say, oh look, I don't want my child to go to that religion class. No, it's going to be applied across everything. So approach the school, make your voice heard, stand your ground, and we pray for you to make it happen. I think we're fortunate enough that it hasn't happened to us yet, in the sense, in our schools, but I feel for the parents that do. We have heard of parents that have approached the school and said, oh, we're not happy with this, and they said, oh, come on, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, this is just natural now. This is nowadays happening. So the parents had to pull their students out of the school, their kids out of the school, and move on to...
It's unfortunate, but if, at the end of the day, if they're not going to listen to what parents want, we're going to walk with our feet, and they need to know that.
And I guess the thing, again, I keep referring to overseas experiences. The thing is that if you don't fight for it now and it gets passed as law, it'll be a little bit too late, similar to a gentleman that is in Canada who, when same-sex marriage was applied, something similar to safe school happened, and he wasn't happy. He tried to fight it in courts. He lost in court after 6 years of fighting it in court. Lost in court to the extent that the court ruled that you might not be fit enough to be taking care of your own child, because this is the law, and the law, the children now need to recognise transsexuality as a normality, not as something. We don't really care about what you believe, basically, but the kids need to move forward with it. And So if we don't fight it now, we're going to be fighting that battle in the future. So I'd encourage you to be, go out there and speak up about it. I know in a lot of, we're talking to the youth, but I know a lot of our culture, the elders are not the ones that go out and speak out, but please do. And if you can't, I keep saying, go to a parish priest or go to somebody in your church or somebody that you know that you can trust and say, what can I do? That's all I can recommend. But
But also, one other thing that's really important is that we teach our kids to say no. A lot of parents don't like their kids saying no, 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 no all the time. But it is so important in this day and age for us to teach them to say no. No, this lesson is making me uncomfortable. This is against my belief. No, I do not want to be here. And literally, have the confidence to exit yourself. And just like we teach them to say no to strangers, this is the same thing. And to drugs, and to alcohol, and to all of these things. It is so important to teach them to say, no, this is not acceptable. I do not believe in this. And build that confidence in them. I'm just going to add to what Sam was saying before about kids are taken away from their parents. In England, it's now law that Christian families are not allowed, devout Christian families are not allowed to foster children.
Unless they believe in the transsexuality.
Oh my God.
So if you say, I'd like to foster or adopt and so forth, and so then they investigate to understand whether you are willing to support that. So if you're saying, no, look, Christian values tell me no, I can't support that and so forth, then you're basically rejected from adopting a child or fostering a child. Or even if you have a child that is fostered, because foster childs are, you can say, property of the state or belong to the state until adoption stage, well, the state can come along and investigate. And if you're not supporting that child with transsexuality and making them follow the regime, well, you're not fit. So potentially a child could be removed from parents that have been fostering for a while.
Okay.
There is one thing that I forgot to show you guys before, and this is the kind of thing that, I don't know if you can zoom into the title of it, the kind of thing that they actually teach them in safe sex, how to healthier and safer ways to bind your chest. This is for trans boys, trans girls who don't want to be girls, and they teach them how to bind their chests so that their, breasts don't grow, and they can hide it. And there is similar instructions on how to tuck your boy parts as well, which I've spoken to a few close doctors. This is actually online. Everybody can search this safe school material. Yeah. And again, if you want, I think the actual brochure, this brochure is actually on your website, I believe. A link to it is on your website. It has all the links that we're talking about. So it's all there, and you can Google it yourself. You can explore yourself all these materials.
Can I just go on the brochure? If somebody is not, I know we're all talking English now, but if your parents can't understand it, please, again, email us. We have an Arabic copy, and we're happy to send that through, so then the parents can actually read and understand how the extremities behind it. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I did speak to one of my very deep priests this afternoon, and I said, "Can you pray for us for this episode?" And I said, I asked him for a verse that I can use, and I don't think he could have given me a better one. Thank you, Abuna Pavlos. It's Matthew 18, verse 6. Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the deep of the sea. I don't think it fits any better. I think if we don't do anything where we are actually encouraging this, and we are causing these kids to sin.
Yeah.
So it's upon all of us. It's our responsibility, I think.
And I guess we're not eliminating the fact that there is people that feel that they are gay or lesbian or transsexual and so forth. But what we're saying and what the research has found and what the doctors, psychologists and so forth, it is not a medical condition, it's a psychological condition. And the example that I think
But they don't know it, and that's why. And that's why they feel like they were born that way.
Yeah, but there is no gene that says you're born that way. And the example that I use is that some people are actually, and this lady wrote in saying she's anorexic. So anorexia is also a condition that people have. It's a reality, it's what they have. But it's not a medical condition. It's actually something that they need help mentally to support them to get over it. And so her example is that I'm anorexic, I don't like the body that I'm in, I feel like I'm too fat. So if somebody is anorexic, they feel they're fat, they go to the doctor, is the doctor going to do liposuction on them? Is the doctor going to remove more fat from them? This is really what this transgender transformation is really happening. Somebody's not comfortable with what they are, so we're actually medically changing that for them rather than trying to help them to understand what they are, get comfortable with what they are.
And at the end of the day, we're here to protect our children, and that's
right.
the reason for this show, because we care for the future of our children and our grandchildren. And yes, as Coptic Christians, they are the future of our church, and we need to look at their education. I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. It's a pleasure having you and an honor being on the Ask show.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to our audience members who's tuned into tonight's show. You know where to start. The postal survey is going around. You can control it just by voting. Start there. And then if you want to take more action, they advise you on the approach you can take. Please protect your children, protect our future. I'm Min Ibrahim from your CYC studios in Sydney. Good night and God bless.
CYC, Christian Youth Channel.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Hosanna, where we study together God's Word. This amazing vision that Daniel had. How long will you, O God, allow this to happen? We also learn that nothing happens without God's permission. The second 6 chapters are prophetic in nature.
Save me, oh God.
It prospered in everything it did.
We will learn leadership, communication. We will teach you how to develop yourself, how to build up your business. If you want to be the best, be a servant to the rest. Be the one, lead the way.